This video was brought to you by Nebula. On Wednesday, the Walt Disney Company reported its Q3 earnings, and the results were mixed at best. When it comes to Disney's earnings, there are four key verticals worth looking at: movies, TV, streaming, and parks. So in this video, let's dive into Disney's earnings report, where I rank Disney on each of these four verticals, and more importantly, discuss what all of this tells us about the beleaguered media giant, and if there's any chance that they could return to their former glory. During Disney's latest earnings call, CEO Bob Iger remarked that there were three areas of the business that he predicted would drive the company's future growth: film studios, theme parks, and streaming. That leaves traditional television, where Iger's career actually began, as a sort of unloved fourth child. So how about we start there? When it comes to traditional TV, Disney currently owns a handful of channels, collected under the remarkably drab title Disney General Entertainment Content. These include ABC, FX, National Geographic, and cable sports giant ESPN, which doesn't technically fall into this business unit and is 20% owned by Hearst, but we'll get onto that in a moment. Now, it should come as no surprise to anyone that these core channels are struggling right now. TV is in a perpetual state of decline, and Disney is no exception. The latest earnings report showed that TV pulled in $1.9 billion in quarterly operating income, which sounds good, but is down 23% from the same quarter last year, with Disney blaming this drop on three factors: advertising sales, lower payments from ESPN subscribers, and higher sports programming costs. Now, lower advertising sales, especially on ABC, does make some sense. After all, fewer and fewer people are actually tuning in to linear TV. But it goes deeper than just declining viewership, because not only are there fewer eyeballs to sell to advertisers, but advertisers are also looking to pay less, with us seeing a broader slowdown in the advertising market worldwide. Group M and Magna both revised down their predictions for advertising, expecting global ad revenue to only rise by 5.9% and 4.8% in the next year. Now, that does mean that they're still expecting advertising spend to go up globally by about 5%. But when you take into account inflation and the fact that a smaller percentage of these dollars are actually being directed to TV advertising, you can see why Disney is so glum about traditional TV. ESPN is an exception here, though. Their advertising revenue is up 10%, but that doesn't mean that they're perfect either. Remember, just a moment ago, I said that Iger blamed the division's decline largely on ESPN. ESPN's major profit driver has always been cable subscriptions, but as people cut the cord faster than ever, this revenue is drying up. Add to that additional competition for sports rights, with both Apple and Amazon buying up broadcasting rights for major events, and you've got less money coming in from cable and more money going out to acquire these rights. Now, ESPN has been a major revenue driver for Disney for years now, but Iger is supposedly considering selling off part of this business. As I said earlier, it's already only 80% owned by Disney, and while Iger did make it clear that he doesn't want to sell off the business altogether, it does seem that he might be willing to sell off parts of the business, potentially to the NFL, NBA, or MLB, which have all met with Disney recently. Maybe more telling, though, is the announcement from the middle of the week, when ESPN revealed that they'd be partnering with gambling operator Penn Entertainment to launch an ESPN-branded sportsbook. Unsurprisingly, family-friendly Disney has been reluctant to get into the gambling industry for a while, so it's telling that they're now considering it for the first time. On balance then, I give Disney's TV business an E grade. It has got some potential, especially ESPN, but just cashing out might be the best thing to do here. Let's move on to movies, where the picture isn't that much rosier, with their latest slate of releases falling pretty flat.
Oh.
That includes movies like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, The Little Mermaid, Pixar's Elemental, and The Haunted Mansion. Now, of these, Indiana Jones failed to meet the expectations of previous releases. Ant-Man was a rare Marvel movie to lose tens of millions during its theatrical run. The Little Mermaid failed to make a splash, falling dramatically short of expectations. Elemental failed to capture the Pixar spark. And The Haunted Mansion, while newly released, is also struggling to build up much hype, not helped by strikes impacting its promotion cycle, which combined offers Disney a chilling challenge to find a movie that people actually want to watch. Now, Iger does still seem more optimistic about this area of the business than TV, with him pointing out recent successes like Avatar and Frozen, remarking that Disney has had a tremendous run over the past decade, while still recognizing that the performance of our recent films has definitely been disappointing, and we don't take that lightly. He's not wrong either. Unless something miraculous happens in the back half of this year, 2023 will be the first year since 2014 where Disney failed to make $1 billion from any movie, a particularly stark drop from 2022, which saw billion-dollar hits including Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and the third highest grossing movie of all time, Avatar 2. And not making it to $1 billion is a big issue for Disney, a studio which Variety describes as following an all-tentpole, all-of-the-time strategy. With Disney dropping huge budgets on basically all of their projects, they relied on the fact that they could easily pull in billions at the box office to cover these budgets. However, with many criticizing the creativity of Disney's projects, with changing tastes reducing China's appetite, and with Russia totally cut out of the system, it's not as easy to recoup these costs as it once was. Now, to be fair, this shouldn't be overstated. These movies might all be considered flops to some extent or another, but Disney does still somewhat dominate the movie industry. Disney has pulled in about $3.4 billion from its movies in 2023 thus far, beating out every other major studio, even beating out Universal, who released the highest grossing individual film this year, the Mario movie. They've also earned more than Paramount and Warner Brothers combined, although that data doesn't yet include the Barbenheimer phenomenon, so these figures are subject to change. All in all then, Disney is still a force to be reckoned with when it comes to cinema. But with declining box office figures and huge budgets, Disney is either going to need to cut back or come up with a new strategy to monetize these movies. I'm giving Disney's film division a C grade. Speaking of new strategies, Disney Plus was long hailed as the savior of the company, especially during COVID, when the company's rapid growth led to widespread investor acclaim. But things have changed a little bit since then. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, because we're working on a separate video about the issues with Disney Plus, and whether it's secretly killing the company, which you should subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about. But here's the TLDR summary. This quarter, streaming lost Disney $512 million, which is bad, but admittedly 32% less than forecasted, and is significantly less than the $1.06 billion which they lost in the same quarter of 2022. All in all though, that means that the streaming business has lost Disney $11 billion since it was launched in 2019, which is pretty impressive. Disney's subscriber base also fell by 1% in the last quarter, although a large chunk of that is due to a 24% decline in India, after Disney lost the rights to stream Indian Premier League cricket. Now, a 24% drop is obviously not great, especially in a market where Disney has put a lot of investment. But generally, they make less profit from Indian subscribers than other countries, so it's not necessarily a huge profit issue, especially as domestic subscribers stayed flat and other international markets actually saw growth. Regardless, in an attempt to fix these issues, Disney announced that they'd be increasing the cost of subscriptions, with these new prices now double what they charged when the service launched. And Iger has also said that much like Netflix, the company will also be clamping down on password sharing. I'll save my full analysis for that other video, but for now, I'm going to give them a D tier. Streaming does have potential for Disney, but with it losing money quarter after quarter and burning out major franchises, it's hard to justify anything higher than that right now. Finally, we have a bit of a bright spot here: Disney's parks division. Unlike the company's media and entertainment unit, which we've been discussing thus far and is facing precipitous decline over recent years, Parks actually saw profitability rise by 11% this quarter. Now, calm down a little bit, because much of this came from overseas. For instance, Disney's parks in Shanghai were closed due to COVID restrictions for most of last year, and Hong Kong was also impacted by COVID travel in 2022. So merely the fact that these parks are back open and at capacity does explain quite a lot of this huge growth. That's not to say that there isn't some success here. Disney's cruise line, for instance, is now basically operating at full capacity, although that too could be put down to pandemic-driven pressures lifting, and people being more willing to get on big gross plague boats once again. Domestically, the story is also mixed. Attendance at Florida-based Disney World actually declined this quarter, while California's Disneyland did see an uptick in attendance. Florida also suffered on the back of the park's disastrous Galactic Cruiser Hotel, a 2-day Star Wars experience which cost guests about $5,000. Perhaps unsurprisingly, despite the $1 billion that Disney spent on the project, that price tag was simply too high for many people, with the park forced to shutter the project after only about a year and a half. Now, tons of YouTube channels have analyzed this to death, but the TLDR is that this was super costly for the park. And with its demolition now being written down for tax purposes, we're seeing this hit in Florida's profitability. All in all, the parks division is still pretty strong. And while a lot of core fans are complaining about the parks at the moment, it seems the general punters are still showing up and making this Disney's highest tier division. I'm giving it a B+. All in all then, Disney isn't in the greatest state. While its overall revenue from the last quarter grew by 3.8% year over year, mostly thanks to parks, it still came in below investor expectations, resulting in a stock drop after the earnings call, which marks yet another drop for the company, which has already seen a 19% drop in share price over the last year. But that being said, not every movie studio is struggling this much, with recent successes from Oppenheimer and to a greater extent Barbie showing that there is hope for the industry, especially in theaters. In fact, we made a whole video outlining the success of Barbie's marketing campaign and how it helped the movie become the 40th highest grossing film of all time already. We also made another video about Mattel's plans to capitalize on this success and become the new Disney via their Mattel Cinematic Universe, which is set to include an action heist Uno movie, an emotional and gritty Hot Wheels film, as well as films for Big Jim, Boglins, and even Chatty Cathy and Betsy Wetsy. So if you want to watch that full separate video where we talk about the MCU, not that one, then check it out over on Nebula. That's the streaming service that we built with a bunch of other creators, and where we upload exclusive videos like this one, and the TLDR daily discussions, where our team talk about important topics from the endless coups in the Sahel region, a Twitter rebrand, or the specifics of the war in Ukraine. Now, the TLDR writing team hosts these daily discussions most days, diving deeper into the news stories we write about and unpacking the hidden details that they found fascinating, but were either too long or too academic to make it into the final scripts. If you want to check the series out, then you can find the episodes exclusively on Nebula. The best news is that Nebula is less than £2 a month and provides you with ad-free and exclusive videos from TLDR and a whole ton of other incredible content creators like Johnny Harris, Real Life Law, and Legal Eagle. Check it out by clicking the link in the description and make sure you use our link so that they know you came from us.